taught me nice. I play with all of my life. You see my name in the lights. Better get right, I'm a champion. I'm a team. Talking and taught me nice. I play with all of my life. You see my name in the lights. Better get right, I'm a champion.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new era in your sports network. DJ Yoakley with you alongside Anthony Hartwig. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to YSN Live. A big time upgrade, a big time. It's been a long time coming. It started out as Running Point with Ron Potesta and, of course, his lovely sidekick, Mr. Anthony Hartwig. Then it became yours completely for the last, 3 years?
Yeah,
or
3
so.
years running.
And then one day we had a request that we start a separate show that was called the Power Hour that literally became, it started with just a bunch of Jacobos chugging Capri Suns to fill content for right here on YSN. And now a new age has begun. A new day is here. And we're going to kind of try out our forces because it's you, Anthony, it's yours truly, and it's everybody else that comes along for the ride. We're going to have a myriad of guests throughout this entire new era. If you thought that you really liked Running Point or you thought that you really enjoyed Power Hour, you are going to love YSN Live. So what is YSN Live? Now, obviously, it is what our website has been all along: loyal, local, and certainly live. And what it's going to become is, if you're a fan of the Pat McAfee show, if you're a fan of Dan Patrick show, if you're a fan of any of the regular kind of big boys that people watch, we're going to take every bit of those and we're going to bring them down a couple levels to the regional and local levels and make it live right here on YSN. There's going to be more interviews than ever before. There's going to be more content than ever before. And the one thing that held us back prior to, it will never hold us back again. We will have zero time constraints. There is no hour-long show. There is no minimum. There's no maximum. It is just, if it's relevant, it's going to be right here on your sports network on YSN Live. So we want to thank the people that were regular viewers of both Anthony's show, Running Point, my show, Power Hour. This is your show, right? This is your show. This is not Anthony's. This is not mine. This is yours, just like this network is yours. And we're going to make it more special and more personal than ever before. Again, I love, and I know, Anthony, you love the interviews that we do along the way, the ability to shed the spotlight onto players, coaches, and community members throughout, give them that heroic sense of belonging we always talk about. But, man, we're going to make it fun. We're going to make it a lot of fun, and we're going to take those interviews to the next level, and certainly we're going to have it for you all here on YSN Live. And, I mean, initial feelings, I know you were just getting kind of your bearings on Running Point after 3 years. People don't realize how hard that is to kind of host a show, especially host it by yourself. And then I kind of spring this on you and say, hey, you want to team up and do something special?
It was tough. I mean, Running Point, it evolved so much over 3 years. First, it was Ron and me, and then it was me and Ty, and then it was just me for a while. And I felt like it was finally starting to, like you said, I was finally starting to get used to show every day, talking about sports, putting something on the show every day, getting in that routine. It was actually big for me to get in that routine and have something like every day I have to be ready to go, 12:30 prep, 1 o'clock show. But then, I think this is a really good idea. I think this idea that we're going to have, just one show that's called YSN Live and have it kind of, pivot a little bit with the format and have it a little bit more, like you said, like the Pat McAfee's, or it feels like now every big sportscaster has their own podcast sideshow that they put on their own channel. So I feel like it's time to change with the ages, and today is the day for a lot of change, right? So it's a good date to have a new era start on YSN.
You said it, man. It's a lot of change coming today. There's going to be a new national champion. I'm sure that was what you were talking about.
Absolutely.
And Of course, a new age as we get a new president of the United States as well. We're not going to duck that at all. No politics involved, but certainly it always is. Inauguration Day is always a big day for our country, no matter which way you slice it. And certainly the festivities have begun in Washington, D.C. You and I kind of talked about when do we want this to start? When do we want to point to the new era, so to speak? And there's a lot of new eras going on. Entertainment, and we kind of pointed this day and said there's no day better than to kind of begin, because I think it's a day that everybody will remember in one capacity or another. And certainly, not all the changes that we're bringing to the table are going to come today. We kind of just threw this one together. We were actually thinking, hey, do we start today or do we start tomorrow? Because is anybody even going to be watching? Like, there's a lot of people that are probably watching their favorite news component right now and downloading all that, being that it's Martin Luther King Day, and onward and upward. And there's a lot of people that are probably watching every little bit of content. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit. Ohio State and Notre Dame, and what the entire college football process has been like this year with the new playoff system. We'll get into that a little bit. But Anthony, there has been sports, believe it or not, here locally being played all weekend long. And one thing that I loved about your show is the way that you bring it to people and you just recap everything. So without further ado, please bring that to the YSN Live crowd.
Let's pull up the scoreboard, see what we got from. We're going to go to last Friday first. I like to recap the weekend, and we didn't have a show Friday, so we like to go to Friday. And as you can see, like normal Fridays in girls basketball, MVAC in action. That's going to be up until I believe this week is when they start pivoting back to Monday, Thursday. DJ, what were your thoughts about Tuesday, Friday girls, Monday, Thursday boys for the first half of the season inside the MVAC? I feel like talking to other coaches, like it's down the path whether you like it or not in other conferences. And the MVAC seems to be the one that like put the first step out and said, we'll be the guinea pigs of this and see how it goes. And they've been doing girls on Tuesday and Friday and boys on Monday and Thursday for the first half of the season. Yeah,
I like the intuitiveness of the MVAC to kind of set themselves apart and get out there. Listen, I'm going to be straight with you, and there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me. And the politically correct hat is off at this point, and it looks a lot like this. I don't care necessarily when they play. You're going to get the same crowds. What I do love, absolutely love, are the Friday boy-girl doubleheaders.
Yes.
I love them, and for a multitude of reasons. There are opportunities. I did one on Friday in Louisville. There's opportunities for, the boys crowd to see the girls play like maybe they've never seen before, and vice versa. The girls' parents and supporters seeing the boys play, because for a long time, and I think you and I have discussed this before off the record, there has been a line in the sand of you either support boys or girls, unless you've got a kid on both teams.
Right.
And this is an opportunity. I don't think that you necessarily need to play boys on different nights or girls on different nights, but to play them together on Friday nights just feels right.
I think the thought was before this. Well, the crowds are coming because of the day, so we'll just make it equal and have both teams play on their days for the half of the season. That way, we can be equal here. But I think the miscalculation was it's not because of the days, it's because of what team's playing. And, there are schools that have great support for their girls teams because with their girls teams, I mean, you look at West Branch girls basketball, they have huge crowds every year because they're established. But it's because of the teams that are playing. And I think if you really want to improve crowd attendance to maybe a team that doesn't get it, those boys-girls doubleheaders are more of the way to go. And then switch them around, like boys first, girls second, then girls first, boys second. That way the crowds get a good taste of both teams, like you said. I think that's more of the way to go. But I like the idea that they're trying. They're at least trying something to get more people engaged to the teams that don't get it, maybe throughout the season. So at least they're to the season and see them. But I like that they're at least trying to do something.
Let me ask you this. So, I mean, you and I kind of stand on the same side on this when it comes to boys and girls, it doesn't matter necessarily what night they play. It depends. It really depends on what you're putting out there, right? The content that you're putting out onto the floor, onto the field, whatever it may be, whatever sport it may be. I feel like this is forced, don't you? And if you know the backstory, you know it's forced. But this is a forced situation that I really hope, and I don't think girls shouldn't play on premier nights. But let's be honest, there's only one premier night during the week to play sports on, and that's Friday night. And it doesn't matter if, and that's been the argument I think this entire time is, well, the boys get to play on Fridays and the girls don't. Okay, well, the answer is what we've seen, let them both play. And we're having so many problems right now facilitating a junior varsity team, no matter if it's boys or girls.
That's the big timing, because a lot of girls either don't have a JV right now or they have like the 2-quarter JV. So maybe 10 years ago it'd be a problem because both teams had JVs, and you're like, where do we play those games? But now it's not as much of a problem because either you don't have a JV for the girls teams or you play 2 quarters and it doesn't take up that much time.
Right. And there's Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. You can play the JV games there. And for the people, and there are people out there, believe you me, because we hear them, we see them, we facilitate them in the conversation that they bring. It's, well, what about the JVs? What about the I'm sorry. I live in a world where if you are junior varsity, that means you're not good enough or you're not patient enough yet to be varsity, right? Not every freshman needs to be playing varsity. Believe it or not, parents. There's not every sophomore needs to be playing varsity, believe it or not. And guess what? You can wait your turn or you can get better. Those are your 2 options. And to me, there's a lot of people out there that it's just a participation trophy. It's, I want to see my kid play because they're my kid. And that's fine. You have that ability. There's a little rectangle you carry around and you can stream them to your family and friends. We should not be, and I refuse to get into the JV participation trophy situation.
People forget that we pay for the broadcast we put up. So it's like, that's more, it's still a business, and that's more you can shell out for every JV team.
You can make them feel special. You really can. But at the end of the day, and it's a situation where your JVs are few and far between. Right. We're seeing more 2-quarter games than we've ever seen before in the history of this network, which means it's in the history of our state, because they really didn't come around until COVID, right? And we were 3 years before COVID. So when you look at that, I'm not dissing junior varsity athletics at all. What I'm trying to say is they're not and should never be held on the same plane as varsity. They should.
I have never been. I go to all the JV games. I make sure I'm there before because it's a lot easier to set up if you're not setting up during, especially for me because I've set up on the floor most times. If you're not setting up during action, so I'm there. I have never seen a JV player that I'm like, oh, that person should be on this varsity team. Like I see a couple that are like, you'll be on the varsity team. You just got it. But I've never been to a JV game where I go, why isn't that kid playing on varsity? It's never happened.
Well, I'll disagree with you there.
I could say that player could be on another varsity team, but I've never been like, that kid should be on this varsity team right now.
What I think you're seeing now is coaches getting very smart about, each kid can get up to 6 quarters a night, right?
And I think that 2 quarters too.
And I think that there's an ability to get players that are freshmen or sophomores that are potential, players, development, confidence in those JV games by getting them those 2 quarters and then getting them the varsity. But even still, I think that the rule would change if you moved JV on Friday nights right before a game to Saturdays.
Right.
And you can play 4 quarters.
But then it wouldn't
then you can get more kids. JV, there's no JV state championship. We're both well aware of that. But I think that if you're separating JV and varsity games, right, then you can get more kids to play JV because you're taking some of those kids.
Coaches wouldn't have to navigate the quarter limit either because that limit is there for the day. So you don't play more than 6 quarters in a day. So if you separated those games per day, then you don't have to worry about, hey, my kid already played 2 quarters JV, so we can only play 4 quarters. Right? Like you have them for the full varsity if your JVs tomorrow.
I think we just solved the world's problems right there. I really do. I mean,
Man,
being
day
able
one.
yeah, right. We're signing off executive orders as we are first day. And we're not doing it in front of 20,000 people in an arena, but we could. We certainly could. But I do agree, and I really think that would solve a lot of problems, especially for JV, because what people don't really put a finger on is that when there's 2 quarters of JV instead of 4, or there's no JV at all, there's a lack of development, because coaches are not going to, for better or for worse, especially at the JV or at the varsity level, they're not going to sacrifice their team and their team's record and potential for development unless they absolutely have to. And now
I talked to a lot of coaches, DJ, that have the numbers for JV, but their opponents don't. So they're like, well, we just don't have JV games because, and they feel like, well, they're trying to pick up JV games. I mean, we see JV games happening that are picked up JV only on Saturdays because these coaches feel like these players are going to practice too. They deserve to have the reps. So, but they're like, we don't have opponents that can play JV basketball. So they're just picking up as many JV games as they can that aren't normally on their schedule. Just say on a Saturday, let's just go play Columbiana because they have a JV game, for example. And, let's just have a JV only so they get their reps and they feel like they're not going to practice for nothing.
Well, and Rob makes a great point. Why not, just put JV the next day? It helps with the other sports. Okay, and if for all you folks out there that want to make it feel really special, they can play Saturday night. Right. If you really want to sacrifice that, but keep in mind that is double the amount of money for games, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have the maintenance staff, you have officials, the amount of money goes up, but the people that want to see this that are out there supposedly, right? They should be able to fill up that gym. That's the way that it's always been brought to our attention, right? There's enough people that want to watch JV on YSN that we should do it, except for there's not. So it's a dance that you have to do. And let's be honest, the reason that you have junior varsity and varsity games in basketball in the first place on the same night is to save some of those funds, because officials are paid now more than ever. And many people would agree it's for good reason. Some people would disagree with that. But certainly their time is valuable. It's worth an amount. And then you have the people that work the scorers table, we have volunteers as well, the bands, everybody that, and I don't necessarily think that bands need to be there for JV games, but I'm sure there's people that do. But it boils down to, it boils down to, do you want to run a business or do you want to run a charity from that scenario? And schools right now, a lot of them are in the red to begin with. Can you imagine if the frustration began and you've got to basically go from hosting, 22 events per year to hosting 44 events and half of those are JV?
I think if that became a mandate, there would be a lot of ADs that would, turn to, other people, be like, you know what, I'm not doing this. Someone else can do it. Someone else take my job, because that would make a lot of ADs jobs a lot harder. If you said, hey, not only do you have to do all the varsity games, but now you have to do a new day on JV. You have a Saturday, but you have usually 2 or 3 games in the week. So where do you put those other JV games? You only have so many days, so many gym hours. The other teams have to practice still. So you would really run into some logistic problems.
Well, and I think you're going to run into logistic problems regardless. And you already do, because you see that, places like I'm in right now, athletics, they are renting out the gym to teams that don't have time in their own gyms. Not everybody has 2 or 3 gyms set up. Not everybody has an auxiliary gym. Not everybody those are really interesting parts. I think the whole moral of this story that we've kind of walked down in is that the development of today's varsity athlete is significantly behind, because there's just not every team's built the same. Not every district's built the same. And obviously people will point to open enrollment and people will point to this and that and the other thing. But the reality is, even JV coaches. They don't want to be, 0-22. Right. They want to win. So maybe sometimes there's a elbow or a, backroom agreement that, hey, can I get a junior down here so we can maybe spark something, get it going, and these kids can develop. But unfortunately, that's going to be at the cost of a development of another player or a potential player. And now more than ever, I think people can agree, if you're not playing, there's a lot of parents out there that'll go, you know what, screw this. You can quit, or we'll move you to another school because that's what it's all about. It's frustrating. It is, because that's not what open enrollment is made for. It's made for, choice, certainly. And you certainly have the choice to move your son or your daughter. But it's coming at the cost of, well, my kid's not playing, so we're going to move them to another school that they probably won't play either.
That's funny.
There's
leverage with that, because there are conversations that get had, like, hey, well, if you don't play my son or daughter, we're moving. It's like, what do you do? What do you say to that if you're a coach?
Well, okay. you and I have seen and heard these conversations live and in person, right? Like, we were right there, and we've had coaches and parents tell us openly, this will be part of our book one day when we sell YSN and we can sail off into the sunlight. That my kid doesn't get playing time here, so next year they're going here. And I listen, I can't agree or disagree with that. I mean, full disclosure, my son and my daughter will be open enrollment students, but it's not for the athletics. It's for reasons that my wife and I discussed in private, and that's fine. That's a business decision for our family. But my business decision, and I promise you, my wife, she's made it abundantly clear that we will never move our child just because they don't have playing time or because the team stinks. That's never going to be even on the top 100 reasons that we would move our son or daughter. Now, that's our particular situation, but there are parents that say, hey, this is the only way that our kid's going to go to college, and if they're not going to play or they're not going to, and I've got news for them, usually in big bold letters, if your son or daughter, if you think your son or daughter is going to get a D1 scholarship to play a sport, and that's the only way they're going to college, you're already trekking down the wrong path.
You're in trouble. Especially now that we just heard the roster sizes got shrunk down in D1. So kids are not getting recruited as much out of high school anymore. You're going that JUCO route, and then, transfer to a D1 school. We saw a lot of actually local kids that went to D1 for sports get affected by that this year because they just moved the roster size about a couple of months ago. So there have been a couple of kids that we thought it was, and we don't have room for you anymore. And that's going to affect recruiting at the D1 level. But now let's get to the scoreboard on the girls' side. Maplewood, this was a remake of a game that got canceled on Thursday. They stay undefeated in their conference. They win over Wyndham 54-27. Lowville gets the win over Sebring. Morgan Lewis hit 7 threes in this game for the Rockets. Really,
I'm going to pause you there. That was unbelievable. McKenna Lewis, by the way.
Oh, McKenna Lewis, sorry.
I believe it's her younger sister, if I'm not mistaken. McKenna Lewis it was tough, Anthony, because the scoring was slow for both teams. And then all of a sudden, this young lady donning the number 13 jersey just starts chucking the ball up from every which way of the court and splashing 7 threes. I believe that is the most I've ever seen in one game from a girl. And boy or girl, it's impressive. But when you look at what Lowville did and the struggles that they had putting the ball in the hoop, my goodness, McKenna Lewis with a career night could not have been happier to been there. And I think everybody in the gym, not just Sebring, was looking like, where else is this girl going to shoot the ball from?
And Sebring has to be like, man, we almost had our first win. If that doesn't happen, I mean, you take 21 points away from Lowville, Sebring wins that game. But when it's the girls' night, it's the girls' night,
Reagan Wynn, I'll tell you what, Reagan Wynn was impressive. And I'm going to be shocked if she's not on the floor in Boardman for our All-Star game in March. She was really, really impressive. You could tell that she wanted it almost more than anybody on the floor. But McKenna Lewis just was not going to let it happen. I mean, she just – a special night. I tried to seek her out after the game. But being that it was a boy-girl doubleheader, there's the time marches on, right? So
Right.
we'll have to get her on the show here and interview her about that special night.
You go inside the great tier of the MVAC. LeBray, after their loss to Crestview, gets right back to it. They're trying to keep pace with the Rebels for that second matchup. Later on in the season, they beat Garfield. Southeast gets the win over Newton Falls. Kind of low scoring for Southeast season. They've averaged much more than 35, but Newton Falls defense, keeps them in check, but they don't score enough to beat the Pirates. And then you have Crestview all over Liberty. No shocker. I mean, Crestview is just on a different level in the MVAC this year with Addison Rhodes and Lorraine Gaskins and what they're doing as a tandem. And then Brookfield and Champion, you have Champion getting the win there inside the MVAC grade tier.
But what does that set up tonight? You talked about Crestview, and you obviously talk about Southeast. Yours truly lucky enough to walk into the Rebel Dome and to see what should be quite the battle in the MVAC tonight. And I'm really interested to see, because we've seen some blowouts, obviously, for both sides of these squads. And, I don't think that this is a blowout either way. Do you?
No, I don't. I think especially Southeast, because they play so scrappy, they're gonna always feel like they're in the game, even if maybe they're not. Even if the scoreboard says they're down 12 or down 14, they're gonna play like it's a 2-point game. And that's one of the things that Coach Black talked about the first time they played. I was there in the game right before, and I said, "Hey, why don't you preview Southeast?" And he said, "Boy, they just never give up on any kind of loose ball, any kind of play." So they're gonna make Crestview work for everything they have. And when you play a team like that, it's a lot harder to win, 72-3 when a team's just like never going to break, never going to give up. But there's a lot that you have to stop for Crestview. There's a lot that you have to contend with. First, you have to stop them from getting inside with Lorraine Gaskins. But if you do all that, then you have to also deal with Addison Rhodes, who can shoot the ball from anywhere. And then if you stop both of those players, they still got a really good sophomore point guard in Breida Cross that can distribute the ball wherever it has to go. They have a couple of lockdown shooters in Meyer Miller and Ava Busey, and they just have a lot of weapons right now. It's kind of Crestview's time in the sun. They have this window of opportunity with players that are just in this moment special together on the one team. They're going to lose a couple of seniors next year, but this is kind of their window of opportunity right now, and they're definitely playing like a team that knows this could be a special year.
Well, let me ask you, and we'll put this aside because we gotta wait a minute. How do we get this out of here? Get that scoreboard out of here. Let's get you and I up here on a split screen here, because we got to get this for certainly for content. But I think we're the only ones that will address this, because this has been a Crestview team that we've seen, run the table over the last few years several times, and then you've got this team that I think you and I both agree could be the best team that they've put out there in quite some time. And I'm talking decades. I'm talking like the last 20, 30 years, right?
I think since maybe Kelsey Boker was on the team
right
in 2008.
So you're talking almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And then obviously before that, there was, they've had great teams at Crestview for basketball.
They've had great players. Ashley Harrison, Lexi Cross.
Bree Phillips. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Absolutely.
Katie, oh man, it's gonna bug me.
Keelan Perry.
Well, it's Katie Dickey now. What is it? What was it? Katie Kibbe.
Okay. Yep. There you go.
So you sorry, Katie. I know you're out there watching. Probably not watching this, but somebody will tell you about it. But the question is, I mean, we've seen all these Crestview teams be successful, girls sports especially, but basketball, with the beefing up of their schedule this year intentionally, right, to help get them to the next level. Do you think, as we sit here right now, do you think that beefing up their schedule will help them get to ultimately where they want to be as district champions?
Yes, I do. I think they learned the lesson last year, because they got to a team in the super district now that you see a lot of teams from the region that you wouldn't really see until regionals, until a couple of years ago when they made this super district. They ran into a Keystone team that was just different level. They play a lot of bigger schools. They know how to play against good, talented teams. Record wasn't the same as Crestview's, but they kind of learned that doesn't matter. And they got kind of shut down by that Keystone team. Triway. Was it? No, it was Keystone. I'm sorry. But when you're playing in the super district, you have to be ready for that level of basketball. You have to be ready for teams that play consistently against that level of basketball. And when you're, head and shoulders above your conference like they are right now, you kind of got to make every non-conference game count a little bit more. You got to go to Hoban. You got to play Hoban. You got to play Massillon, Washington. Those are two teams. I guarantee they won't see anyone in Division 5 until maybe regional finals that plays basketball the way that Archbishop Hoban does. So they're not going to run into anybody that says, we've never seen this before. Massillon, Washington, the same way. Like, there won't be anyone that can score like Delaney Pierce and Leanna Moore score for Massillon, Washington that they run into in Division 5 until maybe regional finals. So they've kind of exposed themselves to that level of basketball. They know what it takes to compete against that.
So does it matter? I guess, I guess the better question. I'm trying to build this plane while it's in the air here, but does it matter what the outcome is of those games, or is it just a matter of being exposed to that level of talent?
I think it matters because you're towing that line of, okay, we're going out there, we're exposing ourselves, but do we deflate ourselves a little bit by saying, we get beat by 30, can we come back from that? And I think they've proven they can, because they got kind of roughed up against Hoban, and they came back. Yeah. They played pretty well against Massillon, Washington, which was the next team that was really elite on their schedule. And they've beaten some non-conference teams out there that have also been pretty good. So I think they've been able to not deflate themselves, but on the other end, that could have gone really bad. Like if they get smacked by Hoban and all of a sudden, the air gets put out of their balloon or out of their bubble, they could have tailspin a little bit, and they didn't do that. So I think outcome matters in the sense that you don't want to lose confidence. You don't want to lose that swagger that they have as a team. But at the same time, you do want to win those games. And I think they learned reasons why they didn't win those games. And I think that's going to become important in tournament time. So
tonight's game, when you look at Southeast, the Lady Pirates take on the Lady Rebels in the Rebel Dome. It's a 5:30 tip-off. It's somewhere around there, and we'll be there. Don't worry. But it's a situation where if Southeast can, kind of like Rocky versus Creed, if right. Southeast can go the distance with Crestview, does it hurt or help either team if they're able to do it? And what if Southeast walks away with a win? What then?
Well, there would be a loud shout from Leavittsburg because it would tie back up. But it would also, I think, if that were to happen, it would be a reality check to Crestview that we can't take our foot off the gas pedal any given night, because there are teams like Southeast that are good enough to play if we don't show up. And then it would also tell Southeast would be like, okay, now if we can beat Crestview, who can't we beat? It'd be one of those situations. And that gives them a lot of swagger heading forward into tournament time.
So again, do they have to win this game, or do they just have to go the distance?
No, for Southeast, I think if they want to get confidence, they just have to, even if they end up losing by let's say they lose by 20, right? But you have to celebrate the small victories. Hey, let's say there's a stretch in that game where they hold Crestview to 6 points and they scored 10. They win a quarter. They can look at that quarter and say, this is what we did right. Let's bottle this up and try to do this consistently against good teams. And I think LeBray, when you look at that game, when they played each other last week, LeBray ended up losing by 24 points, but there was 1 point in that second quarter where it went from 10 points to 19 points like that. And I think LeBray's probably sitting there like, if we take that away, we're playing with Crestview that whole night, and that could have been a lot closer of a score. And they kind of have a little bit of confidence from that. I was talking to the team after the game. They feel like as much confidence as you can possibly have after losing by 24, they kind of had it a little bit.
Well, and that's, I think, the biggest question of what we've seen in the past years. We've seen Crestview just absolutely mop up on teams to the point where people are frustrated and say, oh, they shouldn't win by this many, and the sportsmanship and da-da-da-da-da. I'll sit on the varsity side every single time and say, if you're playing varsity sports, I'm sorry. If it's your job to stop the other team, right? Same way as it is professionally. I'm not going to say that, but you look at the scores this year, and Crestview's lost by 20. They've lost by, I want to say they lost by 30, and then they've won by 50, 60 points. What team are we seeing? Are they just playing that vast of a schedule that there's teams that are that good and teams that are that challenged?
Well, their losses are Hoban, Massillon, Washington, and I think that's their only two, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right.
Those are, I mean, those are elite. Those are D2 Homan that has a chance to make a run to state, to be honest, and then Madison Washington, I think, also undefeated minus a little bit of a glitch there where they played a person that they haven't lost the game on the floor when it counts to basketball. So those are two big level elite teams that they've lost to by 10 plus, and by Hoban by 30 plus. But they also are saying on their side, Crestview is, they weren't healthy. Like they weren't exactly at full strength during those games. And you take that for the grain of salt on what it's worth. But Ava Busey adds a lot to that team. It's a guard that's bigger. You'll see tonight she can shoot the three, but she's also, a lot bigger than most of your average 3-point shooters that you have to guard out there. So having her back healthy helps. And then Lexi Blower is someone that can give Lorraine Gaskins a little bit of a break down low and give her some oxygen where she doesn't have to play the whole game, all 32 minutes. So those are two important pieces that they were missing for both those games that you have to take into account a little bit in the scores. Now Crestview feels like they're finally healthy. They're going towards the right direction. But yeah, I think this is a Crestview team that learned a couple of lessons last year. When you win the way they did in the tournament, like you said, there's nothing wrong with that, but it does rub some people the wrong way. And I think there were a lot of people that were maybe a little bit more motivated to beat them because of that final score a little bit. I think there were some people that were like, okay, you're going to do that to a team. We'll show you a little bit. And they had to deal with that a little bit too. I think Keystone was a little bit more motivated because they saw that score that popped up in the sectional. But I don't fault Crestview for doing that like a lot of people do. I think there was a Penn State football game this year where Coach Freeman came out and said, my job is to put the next round of players in the game. My job is not to tell them to stop playing football. And that's what I did, and they kept scoring. So I'm not going to tell them
Coach Franklin, not
Coach
Freeman. Freeman's for Notre Dame.
Freeman's Notre Dame. But Coach Franklin, I'm not going to tell my players to stop playing. And that's the same mentality that Coach Blatch has. He's not going to tell his players to just lay down because they're up by 50.
No, and we'll I'm sure we'll get over this as the days go on, and the super regional or super whatever they call it, comes into it, because we're going to see scores like that, and it's not just going to be Crestview; it's going to be other teams. Yep. But Crestview's been one that people have circled for one reason or another, and it's been frustrating, certainly to guys like you and I, because what are you supposed to do? Like you said, are you going to tell your kids, "Hey, you know what? We're beating them by enough. Stop playing." Let them get one. Eventually. Like I'm sorry. That's, to me, there's sportsmanship and then there's a loser's mentality. That's a loser's mentality. Like, let them come back. No. Like you worked those hours, those long days in the weight room when nobody's watching. The lights are off. You're working your free throws. You're working the post. You're working everything that we talk about. Everything that you see if you have an athlete and you see them working hard. Yeah. Those kids work hard too. Why should they have to dress it down because some other kids or other teams maybe don't work as hard, or maybe they're not as talented? I don't think that, I would hope that nobody would ever take it easy on us from that standpoint, right? And
then I love they're just padding stats. Well, you know what? You know how much work went into getting those stats and getting those numbers that those players are putting up? They deserve the right to go up there and get as many as they can get, There's a lot of unseen work that goes into your Addison Rhodes and last year, your Sophie Gregory's and those kind of players that I think people take for granted that they just show up and play well on the court. Like, no, there's a lot of nights in the gym where they're shooting 200, 300 shots, to get those up every night. There's a lot of unseen work in the dark that goes into the numbers that we're seeing be put up by these special players.
Years.
Don't handcuff greatness.
No, and it's the same way is even if you were losing. I wouldn't want my kids to quit. You go out there and you're getting your tail spanked. Fine. Go out there and get it, but keep your head held high and play hard, because you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's going to be there. There could be a coach there that's watching someone for the other team, and they see how good you are, or they see that you never gave up, even though you're down 30, 40, 50 points, whatever it may be. Get in there. Like you're not always going to be on the best team, even if you're the best player. I mean, I can go back to the days of, think about this, right? Think about the way the NFL draft and the NBA draft, for the most part, is set up. The worst teams typically get the best players, right? So
Yeah.
you're not going to go in and make an immediate impact right away, but it's the idea of keeping those teams compatible, being able to take the worst team and potentially play for a championship within a couple years
Right.
because you have the best players. Well, it's a little bit different in high school. You have the best players that are available to you, based on your locale, your region, whatever it may be. You don't know who's going to be watching from the D3, D2, JUCO, D1 college and say, hey, that's exactly what we're looking for. So the frustrated parents, the frustrated coaches, which are few and far between, to be honest, they don't really get it. This might be the end of the line if your kid's not going to go on and play. But at the same token, I'm sure there's coaches that recognize greatness, even though they're not favored on the scoreboard. You know what I mean? We see it all the time. Those emotional moments as we're watching the handshakes and great sportsmanship applied by both teams.
Mhm.
And there's moments where coaches stop players individually and say, wow, you're a great player. We loved playing against you. Never give up. If there's anything we can ever do, that kind of thing that goes on that you see at the end of a CBS or NBC or ABC or whatever it may be, when you're watching football games. Make sure that that's what's being said. Last night was a perfect example. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson had it was an exchange that I saw a lot of pushback about Lamar Jackson, about him smiling. What can't he smile
There's
about?
this culture that that you don't want your football players to be friends off the field when the game's over. Like, I've never got that narrative. Like, these guys have respect for each other, at the highest level, because they know more than anybody what everyone's going through. They know what it takes to get to that level. So after the game, and you're going to see it next week too, because Mahomes and Allen are great friends off the field. You're going to see a lot of respect after the game, no matter who wins that game next week, because they've gone through this journey together. They kind of understand more than anybody what the other person goes through to get there.
Oh, and this is something we're going to talk about this week, certainly, because, your Chiefs, once again, are in the AFC Championship game. Congratulations, Anthony. We're all proud of you. But I will tell you this. Only one man is a bigger Bills fan right now than yours truly. And that's a guy that used to be on this show. And maybe we reach out to him this week and we have a little invite, a little trash talk, perhaps, between you two. But I will tell you this, and I've taken a lot of heat. I might be the number one Josh Allen fan in the world. I absolutely love the way he plays the game, but most of all, I love the way that he is off the field. I mean, if you see the clips about what he does with children's hospitals,
he's a good leader.
He's incredible, and he's the kind of guy that you can admire. That's the kind of guy that I will. When I look at him, I point to him immediately, and I say to my son, "Hey, that guy, be like that guy." It has nothing to do with race, religion, creed, nothing. It has to do with the way that he is and the way he leads. And that's the kind of guy that a lot of times, Ant, we can say is long forgotten in this era of, and you live it, the era of, is Taylor Swift going to be at the game? Like, we lose a lot of, that's who you want your kid to be like. Right. In these players. And a lot of time they're offensive linemen or defensive linemen because they don't necessarily always have the camera in front of them. But for what Josh Allen has done, I think a lot of it comes from being a small town guy, going to a not necessarily a Power 5 college, and then being thrust into a Buffalo fraternity that isn't necessarily on the main stage in the top 30 of NFL teams. Now, that community, Bills Mafia, yes, they absolutely love their team. But I don't think before Josh Allen was there, people were sitting there pointing at them saying, hey, they're a powerhouse that they are today.
No, not since the early 90s.
Jim Kelly. Bruce Smith.
Between, I think after the Titans beat them with that, miracle in the lateral, the kickoff return for a touchdown. They got the Titans. From that game on, I think the Bills went like 17 or 18 years without getting to the playoffs. So Josh Allen kind of really re-sparked that whole football team. There's a lot
Well,
of
you
Ryan
think
Fitzpatrick.
it was Drew Bledsoe was the highest paid quarterback for a while. It
Right.
was $100 million or something like that. They paid Drew Bledsoe to come in
Trying
because
to
Tom Brady
reinvent his
took over.
career. Yeah.
And I think after that didn't pan out, there was a lot of Bills fans that were like, "Oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do?" But then you look at what Josh Allen was, and the Bills, believe it or not, now looking back on it, took a waiver on him. And I think a lot of us that are NFL fans see that because you don't know what you're going to get. For heaven's sake, you don't have to look very far. You got Kenny Pickett, who was drafted a few years ago, who is just, a backup in Philly right now. But I think the collective, city of Philadelphia this weekend was holding their breath thinking if Jalen Hurts goes out, there's no shot of us going to the NFC Championship with, Kenny Two Gloves, slinging the rock. You look at what the Lions have done and what, the Rams have done and given up. They thought they had a winner in Jared Goff. It just didn't work out there. So they traded to get Stafford. It's worked out for Stafford, obviously, with a Super Bowl championship and success. And then it's worked out for Goff in Detroit because they got so much back. But, you look what Josh Allen has done, and holistically, I would implore everybody who's watching this to take a closer look at number 17 and see what he does, not only on the field, but the guy that he is off the field and what he does. And I think that's what we're missing a lot of here at the local and regional levels is shining a light on what our kids do in the community. And that's the heroic stuff. That's the stuff that people should say, I want my kid to be like that. I want, we need to push that more. And it's our job to, right? Yours and mine, to push that more. If we see it, we hear about it to be able to promote that. But I think that it's not necessarily the most exciting thing to do. A lot of people don't look at that and say, well, that's what I want to do. They want to ball out. They want to be able to have the Patrick Mahomes haircut and do all the things off the field, that their celebrities do. And the celebrities aren't being showcased for the cool stuff that they do in children's hospitals, which I love. I think, we need to take a collective look and say, there's people that, whether you're up 50 or down 50, there's young kids that aren't able to do this, that would die to be on that floor, to be on that field, to do what our kids are doing, even at the junior varsity level.
And that Walter Payton Man of the Year award needs a lot more attention than it gets. I feel like it's just like a afterthought during some of these broadcasts where it's like, watch the NFL honors where we'll give you the Man of the Year, and then let's get back to the broadcast. Because the Man of the Year award, where every team gets someone in their community that has been astronomical to reaching out to their community and doing all these things for the people that support them every Sunday, those guys are the ones that need a lot more attention because that there's 32 men every year that get that opportunity to be held above everybody else to say you do more than anybody for the community that our team is in.
I just got an idea, Anthony. And I bet you know where I'm going with this. What if we had each school that was YSN present a Person of the Year award, and we had not a banquet. We held an award, very special, very class A, at the end of the year, and we could present the Person of the Year similar to what the NFL does. But there's no. It could be obviously it's a student athlete, but it doesn't, boy, girl, doesn't matter. Right. Or you can do boy and girl. I think that would be cool. And then you name one boy, one girl every year, the Person of the Year. I think we got something here, pal.
I want to dive into some research and see, obviously there's voting that goes into it for NFL, but there's more than just voting on how they decide who wins the Walter Payton Player of the Year and try to emulate from that on how we would decide who would win it based on the nominees.
And we're starting to get comments, so there must be some. Yep, there it is. Yeah. Rob Johnson says, "Love that, next level idea," and I think that's a brilliant token. I think that's something that we could find someone that we should idolize and to be like, and you name the award after and things like that. So I'm excited, man. I think we've had a good start to this. Obviously, we're just getting started here today. on the YSN Live debut show here. Anthony Hartwig, DJ Yoakley. It's all been brought to you. The first part has been brought to you thanks to our friends that have been there from the jump. Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. And I mean, I know that you're constantly singing their praises. They were the reason that you were able to do what you did every day, for them to continue on with us here during YSN Live and have zero even hesitation to be part of this. What has Greenwood Chevrolet meant to you and what you've been able to do in development here at YSN?
Well, I love it because when there was a transition, that was their doorway out. Like they could have said, "Hey, you know what? Running Point's not going to look like what we thought it was when we sponsored it. Let's cut and run." That was an opportunity for them to do it, but they didn't do it. They said, "Hey, we trust what not only DJ puts in front of Running Point, they trust what I was going to bring to Running Point." And they stuck with it. And I think Running Point has changed a lot since I first took over as host, and it was me and Ty. There's been a lot of evolutions, a lot of changes that Greenwood Chevrolet could have been like, well, you know what? This is the time where we say, you know what, we're gonna take this open door because Running Point is changing again. They never took it. So you gotta love the people that believe in you, even when there's maybe a little bit of faith that's involved in it. You don't know what you're getting into when you walk in to that next room when the show's changing a little bit or evolving a little bit. You don't know what is going to happen or how it's going to go, but they keep stepping with me. They keep stepping through that door with me, and they're going to keep stepping through that door with this new era where, once again, we don't really we know how we want it to go, but there's a little bit of unknown, and that takes a little bit of faith to jump off the springboard, the diving board. And I'm sure you're going to see the same thing about Toyota Warren, which has supported your show with Power Hour for the last couple of years, and they'll be able to sponsor us here on the second segment of our show. But there were a lot of times when they could have just said, you know what, cut and run, right? And they didn't. So I appreciate that.
I second that, everything you said, and certainly they've been through a lot with us, a lot of the growing pains, and they've been there just patting us on the back the entire way, because you got guys like Greg Greenwood that are leaders not only in the community but in the industry of selling cars and getting people moving quite literally and where they need to go. And Greg Greenwood's been great. You talk about the great people over at Greenwood Chevrolet, and you mentioned it over at Toyota of Warren with Tino Merlo and his whole crew over there. For them to set aside any differences and to say, yeah, we believe in what you do, as opposed to, this is what we want, and it's easy to be able to want in today's world, and certainly, but I'll tell you what, to be able to get behind us, and we've got a lot more people that are looking to advertise on YSN, and that excites me, because it's not just I feel a lot of pressure, from that standpoint, because of what we put out on an everyday basis. Because you and I both know sometimes we're holding our breath, right?
Those summers are wild.
and guess what, buddy? The summer's going to be even more wild, because we're going to take it on together.
Right.
But certainly, the bigger question that I've got so far, even in text messages, as we were going back and forth, is what happens to football. Because we did those 3:00 shows with Power Hour, and we had the picks. Well, that's the beauty of what we do here, is that we'll be able to do, we'll move it from noon to 3 in football season, or in the summer we can move it to a time that works. This is just content that works for the day. This isn't just what time it is. Yeah, we're YSN Live at noon right now, but we might change it throughout the day. And that goes against everything that any marketing person will ever tell you with consistency and deliverables. But here's the thing. This is the internet, folks. This is the wild, wild west. And at the end of the day, you're not necessarily just consuming content that happens live. You're seeing it on the back end. Some people are working naturally at noon on a Monday, and they won't see it till 4:00 on a Monday or right before they go to bed. I know people that watch your show and my show right before they wind down for the night, or when they're working out the next morning. That's what it's for. This is not necessarily going to be all the time at noon. Now, noon probably going to be our centrally located spot. But if we've got to change it, we'll let you know. And certainly if a show gets canceled or things like that, because at the end of the day, Anthony, we're not just, internet show hosts. We are guys that go out and broadcast games.
Right.
And like we've always talked about, the tribal chief of what we do is broadcasting games and getting kids to be have that heroic sense of belonging in their communities. So, there's a lot of people like, oh, wait a minute, we're not doing the picks anymore. Yeah, we'll do the picks. Don't worry. And Anthony will be a part of that, which I think you're excited for.
And don't worry, Wrestling Wednesday not going anywhere either. We're not ditching that. Gary Altizer will be back on Wednesday, and we'll still cover our wrestling hour.
And I think, believe it or not, this is going to deliver more content because you and I will be able to say, oh, that was a really good piece. That needs to be on YouTube. That needs to be on our website. We can write a story about that. AI, here's the big secret, right? Ready? Whoa. AI helps out YSN, and they help us generate stories. It's not always written by AI, but it's also an opportunity that we're using technology as we've done, and we will continue to do in growing our business, in growing our business model, and in delivering more news and content. So, there's something that we think will thread the needle or will give us a spike. Certainly, I think you cannot hold it against us whenever we try to move the needle a little bit, so to speak.
And we've gotten more content last year than we've ever had before, and we don't do that without the help from AI. I think that's not a bold statement in saying that we don't get the content that we get out there at the volume that we did in 2024 without that little boost.
Well, and let's be honest, we've used it every summer and usually every spring since it's been available on Game Changer. It changes absolutely nothing. Only we're getting the information, putting it into our artificial intelligence, and we're cleaning it up along the way. And it helps us get that, like to your point, helps us get that content out a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. Something that took weeks will now take minutes, literally. We are arms open to technology that helps get more attention to more people in the positive light more than ever before. All right. Should we take our first break?
Let's do it.
All right. We're going to take our first break. I have no idea what this commercial is, but I'm sure they supported us either prior to or currently. So we're going to go to the break. We'll be back with the first edition of YSN Live right after this.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local, independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
The feeling when my hands are on the piano, it's become comforting. It's somewhere that I can express myself. I go to Youngstown State University and my passion is playing music. YSU is allowing me to take what I love and turn it into a career and do it every single day of my life. I'm Alyssa and I'm YN proud.
My guy keeps it 100% of the time. He wants all 100, won't settle for 99. And it's more than stats because there's people in those numbers. And I was one of the lost sheep. I'm so glad he cares for all 100. I'm 100% safe, 100% free, 100% love. I can be 100% me. He gave all 100 when they put him up on that tree. That's 100% passion for 100% free. So if I play in front of 100, or if I play in front of 2, there's an audience of 1 getting 100% of what I can do.
we are back, YSN Live, the inaugural edition of YSN Live. And this segment brought to you by Toyota of Warren. Thanks to Tino and the whole crew over there, proudly letting us roll out the Toyota Tundra, the YSN Toyota Tundra, each and every day. It'll be at Crestview tonight for Southeast versus Crestview at about 5 o'clock. It ain't clean right now, I'll tell you that, because them roads are a little bit salty, my friend. They're a little bit salty. Everybody needs a car wash. Free car washes for everyone in America. Never been bigger. I don't think that I said it. Many people have said it. Your car needs a car wash. Just gonna put it out there. No, but seriously, like I'm excited. Thanks to Tino continuously taking care of us here at Your Sports Network. We talked about Greg Greenwood. When you talk about what Tino, the general manager at Toyota of Warren, does and just continues to reset the bar on customer experience and satisfaction. Certainly, they've got a thumbs up customer here from my wife and myself. My wife has a 4Runner. She's always wanted a 4Runner. Now she's got the brightest 4Runner on the road, bright orange pumpkin. That if you see it rolling around town, it's probably this the little girl inside with probably a little girl in the back yelling at her in some kind of
bright orange pumpkin. I like it. I like that car though.
It's a jack-o'-lantern, man. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but my wife's always had a very certain white or charcoal gray or a dark car for as long as I've known her. And then one day she just goes, "Hey, I want an orange car." Okay. All right. Well, let's talk to Tino. Let's go. So excited for. We're about a year away from the new YSN Mobile.
Ooh.
So I wonder what it's going to be.
Now, see, now here's. Do you ever feel any pressure driving that? Because it's like, okay, my company is on the side of this car, so I can't do anything that would remotely,
Okay, so we're getting real. All right, I'll let you behind the curtain a little bit. So I've only been pulled over in that car once, and it was right after the Austintown celebration, right? Celebrate Austintown or whatever it's called, which, by the way, we will be doing again. It was on Route 11. I was going home, and the most embarrassing experience of my life. Like I felt bad because I got pulled over because I was going a little quick. I was going, I believe it was 88 miles an hour. And the only reason I know that is because he goes, "Do you know you're going 88 miles an hour?" And then the smart ass in me decided to say, "Yeah, I was trying to go back to the future, see if my flux capacitor was still working, and see some serious, you know what." But luckily, I had an officer.
Yeah, the funny cop, right?
He was awesome because I think that's what actually got me off of the ticket. Was he had a sense of humor. So what usually is my downfall was my saving grace in that moment. But no, I'll tell you, Ant, to have a giant billboard with your business all over it and be pulled over by the finest of the state of Ohio. It's a little embarrassing. I'm not going to lie to you. And I also always check my car or my truck rather, because I always think that there's going to be some prankster that puts shapes. We'll just leave it at that, shapes on my car. Luckily, we have a lot of people that like us so far. So none of that's happened. And I hope I didn't just spring any ideas into anybody's mind, but that's all right. We have surprisingly, we have cameras all over that car, so we'll know quickly who it was if they did it. So there.
I don't have the giant logo, but I do have the YSN decal on the back. So when I go to places, YSN's there. One, because no one else drives a giant handicap van, and two, it's got a YSN decal on the back.
We can change that.
So
we can change that. We can put YSN all over that bad boy.
I'll talk to Mom and see what she thinks.
The great people at Campbell Signs down in Calcutta, East Liverpool area. They're the ones that did it. Everybody asks me, they're the ones. I mean, they did a phenomenal job on the truck, and I can't wait to see what they have for the next generation. and everybody asked me, well, do you have to keep that truck? Because, you're not supposed to have that. It comes off. It's a sticker and it doesn't do anything to the paint. It does these are great people, professionals who do this for, corporate America. And we've been assured and we've tested it. It comes right off. And that is going to be a beautiful gun metal gray truck for somebody, in the near future. So with a giant screen in the middle, man, I hope to get that same screen in my next truck because that thing has been sweet. Has been sweet. Hey, did we ever make it through the scoreboard, by the way?
No, we took it down to talk about, I don't know.
Crestview. All right, let's get later. Here we go. It's back up. Why don't you take us through the finishing the scoreboard, then we'll talk about Big Dogs.
All right, so here's boys basketball. This is back from Friday. Alliance, they're able to go and beat Salem. Salem, that EBC is really tough, and they've taken some lumps on the boys' side of it. East Liverpool traveling to Steubenville. They also fall to the Big Red on the road. How about Perry? Perry boys team. I think a lot of people had a little bit of uneasiness about what they would be this year because Walter Moses, who is really good in football, decided to forego his senior season on the basketball court. He was obviously very important to that team in years past. But Perry's still very, very good on the basketball court, and they get another win over Harvey. West Branch goes on the road and beats Minerva. We go to Badger. Our good friend Coach Upshire gets the dub over Chalker. That's a big one for him. Pymatuning Valley at home against Bristol. Tough one. Bristol's a good small school program. 67-64 over the Lakers. Campbell, that offense, if you haven't watched the Red Devils and Sway Rodriguez, they can score when they have to. 75 points in their win over Waterloo.
They're good, dude.
They're good.
They're real good.
And they're flashy. I like that. They're just entertainment. They're that entertaining team. They can do the reverse layups, alley oops, whatever you want them to do to put on a show. They're gonna do it, and I can't wait to have a couple of them maybe in the All-Star game. Columbiana, they're rolling. They keep rolling in the EOAC. They get the win over Latonia. Conneaut, they got they fell to Geneva 50-41. You have Crestview going to Liberty. Low scoring game, but Crestview comes out on top. East going to St. Thomas Aquinas, and Aquinas gets the win there. EOAC, East Palestine, they are able to beat United. Big win for Coach Reynolds. I know he got another one on earlier in the week as well. So good week to be a Bulldog. Girard and Niles, a close one. Niles gets the win by 3. Boardman all over Howland at home. The rivalry that is above all rivalries in Ashtabula County, Jefferson and Edgewood. How about Anthony Cavetta breaking the all-time single game scoring record in Jefferson, 46 points against Edgewood. That might I don't want to take too many steps, but that might be big dog worthy, maybe,
Oh, I don't know, Ant. You think it will be 46 points? I think if we don't put him up, we're in trouble.
77-52, Madison over Lakeside. Hubbard and Lakeview doing battle inside the NE8, and it is a 55-44 win for the Bulldogs. Lisbon gets the win over Wellsville. Close one, though, 50-45. Another kid that's having a great year, Tyrell Watkins from Wellsville, always in double figures every time I get scores from that team.
That dude
but not quite enough to beat AJ Ramgate and the Blue Devils. He's also putting up a really good season. We had postponements from Lordstown and Fairport Harding. The Wyndham and Maplewood boys-girls doubleheader. Wyndham wins the boys' side of that one to split the night for those two teams. Middle Ridge, they fall to McDonald. Springfield goes on the road, falls to Jackson Milton. Big night for the Blue Jays because Ryan Romai becomes the all-time career points leader for Jackson Milton. He needed 8 points, and he got more than 8. I mean, he's going to get more than 8 every night. He's a double-double machine for Jackson Milton.
Can we throw out a kudos right now? And we got it privately because Ty Bartell, who is going to be on this show a lot, naturally, as his role continues to grow here at YSN, he was scheduled for another game.
Yeah.
And Chris Sigler saw the opportunity because we had a good feeling that there was going to be a career night and a special night at Jackson Milton. And Ty goes right to the game, and he said, "Yeah, wouldn't miss that for the world." One of the things, and I'm not going to sit here and belittle anybody, but one of the things that people don't realize about YSN, and you and I have had this conversation, we've had this conversation with the executive team at Your Sports Network, is, when this whole thing started, it started as, okay, it was exciting that someone was at your game, right? And then it morphed to, it's disappointing when YSN's not at your game, which is, most people will look at that and be like, well, and complain about it. We look at that as a badge of honor because we've come so far and people want us at their contest, no matter what sport it is. But there's still a kind of a disconnect to where, there's one entity that gets the red carpet rolled out for them, and that's fine. Deservedly so. They've done a lot, and they've paved the way for a lot that is happening right now in our industry. However, the expectation of us not, and like you and I have to sit through some of those text messages, some of those messages on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. RIP, by the way.
RIP. Well, it came back.
Oh, it's back? Congratulations. Hey, welcome back, TikTok. Way to be resilient. Way to be resilient. It's interesting because you and I both kind of have our moments where we're like, I can't believe what this message said. And I'm not wanting you to feel bad for us. Naturally, it's just like, we can't get everywhere unless we have the other hand reaching out. You know what I mean? And that's just the sad mix of it. And certainly with the communication aspect of it. Now, when you and I went to school, believe it or not, we weren't that far apart. But when you and I went to school, they never canceled games. Never ever canceled games.
It was really hard to cancel a game.
And now it's like, if the wind blows the right way, they're moving a game, or there's not enough people or whatever. Like, it's frustrating. And I'm not pointing at the athletic directors directly. Yeah, that's right. But what I am saying is like, they've got a lot on their plate, and they don't always have the opportunity to tell us if a game gets canceled, where it gets where the postponements gets moved to. And a lot of times those decisions aren't necessarily happening in real time like that. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, let's cancel this because of X, Y, or Z. We'll get back together and then we'll figure it out. What people don't realize is, like, we hang on in the balance of all those decisions. And like, there's been a couple games, especially recently, that we haven't been able to get to because other games, we try to get those monumental games, right? We try to get every game, but those monumental games have to take precedence because you're never going to get those again. And for Ty Bartel, full circle, for Ty Bartel to move from his game, which was a big game, to this game, which will live forever.
Yeah.
Right. And especially in one family, in one community, that's what it's about. That's what it is 100% about, is those heroic moments. We want to be there, and not just for the highlights. We want to be there for the entire thing as the narration of history. And Ty will always have that. And I'm certain that the Romais will keep that clip, if not that entire game, for the rest of their life to point back to and say, my goodness. So I guess the apology letter from us says, sorry, we weren't at your son or your daughter, your grandmother or your grandson's or granddaughter's game, or your significant other or whatever, that someone you care about deeply. But we were at somebody else's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, when you have the reality that we can't get everywhere, then you also have the reality that we have to prioritize games. Like, that's just the two things are mutually exclusive. Like, if we can't be everywhere, we have to eventually make decisions. Do we go to this game or this game? And for that night, like, we weren't going to miss Jackson Milton, having a program defining night with Ryan Romai breaking the career record. Like, that wasn't going to be something that we could afford to miss. So since we can't be everywhere, we had to prioritize that game over another one. It's just the reality.
No, and that's tough. Like, decisions are tough. They're always tough. And I got to give a lot of credit to Chris Ziegler for, being able to make those tough decisions, and I'll stand behind him. And I'll always stand behind him on that. And, people give him a tough time, with some of the decisions but he has my blessing, just like you do. Steve Leslie as well. And you look at what Mike Swinehart, what an angel. What an
Who's
angel.
responsible for this that you're looking at right now?
Yeah. I will always stand behind the decisions that our executives make, as long as they are ones that are made for the company and in the right context of the kids and the student athletes. And I hate calling them the kids, but that's what we're going to call them. In the programs, because that's what it's about. Have we had our fair share of upside down moments?
Yeah.
Yep. Sure have. And we've had to make some really challenging decisions in those moments. Some people that we really thought were the future of our company and moving forward are unfortunately no longer here.
Right.
But you have to be able to be almost frigid and stand behind decisions that you believe in, because it's the betterment of the company to always move forward, to have the best interests of, the student athletes, the coaches and the communities in mind. And those guys, and especially what Ty did and what Chris did last week, dude, unbelievable. Kudos to you guys.
Good job, guys. Good job, guys. And like we said, the game that Ty was supposed to be at was the Holy War, and that was one that we wanted to be at so bad. But, when you have to move, you have to move. That's just the reality, like we said. Going back into the scoreboard, Beaver Local gets the win over Oakland. Owen Hill is a guy that needs a shout out, because he had two straight games, Friday and Saturday, both 20-plus performances. He's having a great season for the Beavers.
Big dog.
Big dog. Moville, they get the win over Sebring. 71 points, a big put out for Moville. Drew Moldelsky has stud qualities. Grand Valley, the under the radar team, still getting wins. They had to really work for this one, though. St. John came in with fight in their mind, 63-62. Mustangs get the 1-point victory. Poland and Struthers doing battle. Struthers, who has struggled in the NE8 this year, they still fight for Poland. That's a rivalry that both teams get up for. And the Bulldogs come out with a 7-point victory. In that Holy War, it was Ursuline with the win, 57-41. A little bit lower than the scores we're used to seeing from that Ursuline offense. Mooney's defense is not anything to joke about. But Ursuline proven that they can win defensive games if they have to, too. They're not all about the high-flying offense. If you hold them down to below their average, they can play defense, which it's got to make Coach Gunther happy, because that guy is nothing but a defensive basketball coach, despite what some of the scores kind of come up as. You might think he's an offensive coach, but he prides himself on, and his teams, on the defense they play. They prove it with the win on the road against Mooney, where they really did have to play solid defense to get the win. Valley Christian, they beat Columbiana for their first loss of the season last week. They're rolling in EOAC. They only have one loss. Dion Miller, another guy, having a great season, and he's rolling in the EOAC for Valley Christian. Warren Harding, this was a matchup between state-ranked teams across all divisions, and Warren Harding gets the win with a good fourth quarter over Canfield, 54-49. Exactly what you would expect from those two teams playing each other. JFK and Rootstown got postponed. LeBray and Garfield, LeBray all over that one, 71-43. LeBray's finally healthy. They got Austin Rowe back on the floor, so that's always good. Then when you have him plus Mr. Wilson out there, you're gonna put together a lot of good wins and a lot of good offensive performances for the Vikings. Coach Kaiser, I remember one of the first games we ever did together was LeBray and South Range. That came up on my memories yesterday, by the way. Listened to it for a little bit, that audio only old school broadcast. He's been doing it for a while at Coach Kaiser and LeBray, and he knows how to win basketball games.
No, I love it. Does it ever freak you out when you go back into your timeline and you watch some of that stuff?
I love watching the growth. Like you listen to that broadcast of where we are now compared to where we were then, and that was really only 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So, it might take a lot of companies like 16 years to make that kind of jump. from where we were. I mean, we were doing audio only broadcasts and the mics were like cutting out because it got too loud at times.
Oh, buddy. I look back, you and I look back differently at that stuff. I look back and I cringe. Like there's moments certainly that I'm proud of.
Like you cringe and you're like, wow, we've come a long way.
Yeah, I don't know if we were still doing it that way, if we'd be alive.
We didn't have a scoreboard on the audio only, it was a video, but we didn't even have the scoreboard up. So we've come a long way.
Can you imagine having to listen to us for the score updates and not having a score? Oh boy, that'd be terrible.
That'd be awful too, because you were cutting me off like, stop talking, Ian. You're a color commentator. Stop.
That's how it goes, man. That's how we learn, right?
Love
we
it.
Especially on a day like today, man, when we can look back and certainly laugh and be proud of where we've come from. As Ty Bartell, I don't understand why Ty didn't just jump on the show today and be part of it.
He's probably a working man.
I'm guaranteed he's a working man. We're not going to say that because there's the powers that be at Tarjay. He says, my announcing from when I first started to now is definitely night and day. I mean, without disrespect, absolutely, Ty. I think that, you came to us as just I don't want to say a little guy, but you've always been a big fella, but as just so green and just dreams and aspirations. And I think we both can agree, Ant, that Ty has become one of the premier broadcasters here on the network with the way that he presents. And, he's one of the solo guys too. He can do it by himself the same way that we do. And that is certainly a feather in his cap, and the growth. And there's been some real conversations and been some real moments where I think we've all had to look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, do I want this? And why do I want this?
I mean, we're a family at YSN, and the ones that have stuck with us and are part of the family, we've had tough conversations like all families have. There are days where I'm sure I'm not Ty's favorite person, or Ty's not my favorite person, or you're not Ty's favorite person, or whatever it goes. It's like any family. But man, we're doing this. We're doing this for the common good. And on those days when we get to look at each other in the mirror, and we get to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, why are we doing this? I think one of the great things about this company is the ones that are there, the ones that have been there, they all have the same answer. We're all on the same path. Some of us might stumble a little bit or take a detour, but we get back on that path. And Ty's one of those guys, that has been on that same path. The core of his journey has been the same as YSN's for a long time. And that's why he's one of the guys that has gotten through those tough conversations. Some guys can't. Some guys can't get through those tough conversations, and they don't last on the path.
Well, that's the funny thing. Yeah, and that's one of the bigger things, right? Is through this whole process, since we started in 2017, there's been moments of epic success and there's been moments of epic failure, and we are fully transparent when it comes to failure. We will pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off, and we will try it again a different way. But we're not afraid to try stuff. We're not afraid to go, out of our comfort zone. I think that's one thing that we've always kind of had going for us is, the speedboat mentality of pivot, turn the wheel a little bit and let's go that way, as opposed to maybe necessarily the way that everybody wants us to go, is we can kind of go around some of the bigger obstacles that we faced. And we've had relationships and friendships and partnerships along the way that have helped us get to where we are today. And I don't want this to sound like it is this is our swan song, because we are far from it. This is the beginning of a new era today, which we are emphatically and incredibly excited about. Ty Bartell is a big part of what we're doing moving forward. He's now at the stage, I think we can say publicly, that when Ty shows up to a game, it's a big game. It's a huge game. And you're in that same stratosphere. And it's fun to show up every once and again to games that maybe aren't marketed as big games for yours truly, but to show up and to be in those communities and to kind of get the feel of what YSN has, the ties that we have into that particular school district or into that community, because the kids get real excited. really excited when our people show up. And, I think that's something that we can't take for granted. I don't think that's something that communities can take for granted either. Because, as you've consoled me along the way many times of, it'd be easier if I just went and worked for somebody else, right? And just took a paycheck and, went along my merry way. But that's not what I'm here to do. And that's not what we're here to do. We're here to make a difference, make an impact, and decisions like the one we're having today. And, things like we just did on the fly with the person of the year. Like, that's what makes what we do so great. Is very rarely is it about us. Very rarely, we don't necessarily take or accept, celebrations or awards or anything like that. We don't try to get nominated. We're always grateful and humble when we are, but that's not why we do what we do. We do it so we can create a platform that heightens others. And that's what I love most. And Ty has bought into that, continually throughout the years that he's been with. I think he's at year 6, I believe. He came in a year after you ish. So yeah, I mean, big things happening. And I can't say this enough. If you're out there and you would like to do something like this, we're always keeping our doors open to people that want to create change. And, whether it's, podcasts like this one or wanting to get on the broadcast, we want to be there. Now, I will tell you that our response time has gotten a little slower since we've grown, but hang in there. And if we don't answer your first text message, your first message, send another one, because we'll get to you. Certainly. We got more eyes on it than we've ever had before. So that helps out. Anthony, thank you very much.
You got it. And that extends to, student broadcasters too. We have a handful of schools that help us out with student broadcast classes, or students that are interested in broadcasting games. And that's what I love. I love watching kids get interested and kids want to do it and then excel at it. I think, if you listen to the Poland boys broadcast and the students that are doing those games, they're awesome. And now we have Lakeview's coming on board with a couple of students maybe. I know that Orange used to before Noah Ricks took that over, and I love student broadcasts. Louisville, Maplewood. I love student broadcasts.
Well, let's take you said Louisville, and we haven't had a chance to acknowledge one of the greater additions that we've had in quite some time in Rob Johnson. And the thing that people don't realize, as Rob alluded to in talking about the conversation that we had in Boardman and joining YSN, there was a split between Louisville and YSN that was it was one-sided. We never want to lose any schools. Let's just be honest. And there was some politics behind it. But what happened was Louisville was covering a game at Boardman. Rob and I were in the same vicinity. Now, Rob and I had completely different versions of the story of why things happen. And to not get kind of tied up in that, we had it out kind of in that that box up at the top.
Right.
And through that conversation, and it was a very kind of one-sided conversation that I will always tip the cap to Rob for kind of bearing that. We saw an opportunity that he wanted to do what we do for kids and student athletes, specifically in Louisville. And that's all we wanted the entire time. So through our differences, we realized that we were more alike and continue to be more alike than we ever were before. And Rob has done one of the most incredible jobs, and he is one of the greatest advocates of that entire community, bleeds blue, true and true. And we are so happy to have him. And, I know Brian and I have had conversations about Rob taking over some additional responsibilities, and the bigger stages like our all-star games and things of that nature, because he does such a great job in production. So, Rob Johnson is another key part of YSN moving forward. We're so excited to shine a light on him and all the great things that he does for the Louisville community, that we want him to do it on a bigger scale for everybody at YSN, because we constantly get pinged. Hey, why can't we have what they have in Louisville? Or why can't we have what they have in Boardman? Why can't we have what they have in Austintown, here, there. So that's our thing is we're going to start taking a little bit more of a step back and pointing it again to bigger production, better production, all that stuff, the stuff that you value the most. While Anthony and I can work on content, we can work on marketing and future partnerships and things of that nature to continue to grow the brand. Because quite honestly, you and I have talked about this, I feel like every conversation, the bigger YSN gets, the more attention that our student athletes will get moving forward, which is ultimately the goal.
Yes, it is. And the bigger it gets, the more people we need, like Rob Johnson, who are going to step up and take some stuff on their plate. And Rob seems like he's more than ready to do it.
So that being said, let's talk about the shining a light on student athletes, because we have some big dogs of the Valley that are freshly crowned. Was that your big dog impression?
You got to flex a little bit on the big dog.
There it is. The big dog. I love it. And these, we were talking before we got on the show, 90 minutes ago. This thing is really taken off, and we thank our friends at Baird Brothers for being our first ever corporate sponsor. And X is having problems now.
Oh yeah,
imagine that. Musk is in.
Oh, there we go.
They're being attacked. We'll continue on our various platforms like Twitch and YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and of course YSNlive.com.
If you're watching on Twitch, comment. I want to know.
Yeah, I mean we got a lot of people that were watching on Twitch. A lot of people that are watching on Twitch still. We're having a day. I don't think you've ever seen stuff like this, have you? These are some big numbers.
Yeah, this is big. I mean, I think there have been a couple of days on both our shows where maybe it's a special moment, or maybe we're having a kid that has a specifically big support system that we might get this. And definitely on our All-Stars drafts, we get kind of these numbers, but this is way bigger than your average show. I'll
Get used to it, buddy. X is back, by the way. Hey, X.
Way
to stand tall. Way to stand tall. We won't call you Twitter anymore. We'll call you X. Way to stay resilient. So big dogs. We have some freshly minted big dogs in. Let's start with the ladies. Girls basketball, week 4 of the Big Dogs of the Valley, presented by Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. The one and only, the wonderful Gianna Pompilia wins week 4. Man, this young lady from Warren JFK has been nothing short of incredible. She excels in literally everything she does. And I know we love the family. Sean's a great friend of ours, great friend of mine. And it's always exciting when you see those efforts rewarded by, the votes that are cast throughout the week.
And this was one of the closer ones that we've had all season with votes. We had a couple communities really push JFK in voting this week, but Pompilia out there, man, she can get her shot anywhere she wants. She's one of those girls that can work off the dribble. She can drive, she can shoot. Just basketball on the floor sense, can do everything that anyone that you want to do, anyone that wants to play at the next level can do. Gianna can do it, and there's no shocker there because you look at the family name and you look at what Big Sis did at Howland, and hey, you know what? There's no shocker that Gianna's doing what she's doing at Warren JFK.
No doubt. And then you look at the second lady of the week, and this is something that this garnered a little bit of pushback. I don't know if you saw the comments and some of the messages. 2 years ago when we did Big Dogs of the Valley for wrestling, we split it up between boys and girls. This year, what we decided was, hey, let's just make it one wrestling thing, and let's see if the girls can hang in there with the guys. That was kind of the conversation. Right. And first week, buddy, Paige Cowan of East Liverpool.
Cowan's like, I can hang.
Congratulations to Paige Cowan of East Liverpool, your week 1 Big Dog of the Valley winner in wrestling, beating the guys, and beating another female in her pursuit of victory. And she has been what a lot of people look to, and when they and we'll talk to Gary on Wednesday, undoubtedly, but when you think of girls wrestling, you think of, the Paige Cowans of the world, who are setting the bar very early on what girls wrestling can be in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, you look at Paige and Ella Thomas, who is also on that list from Poland. They've both kind of just taken the limelight that girls wrestling has taken with OHSA, making it a sanctioned sport and having its own tournament now. They've just kind of run with it, and they've both had monster success the last 2 years. Ella Thomas has won almost every tournament she's been in. She's state ranked, so is Paige, and they're both state placers from last year. So you gotta recognize real, right? So you gotta tip the hat to the ladies that have taken the opportunity that the state has given them by making their sport a sanctioned sport and saying, we're going to run with this. We're not going to take a couple of years to develop. We're going to run with this. And those two have kind of, led the trail. There's a lot of girls that are behind them that are putting together really good seasons as well. And we'll be able to feature them on Big Dogs in next coming weeks. But those two have really just kind of taken the girls wrestling in the area on their shoulders and said, this is what we can be.
I love it, man. I'm excited. And then for the gentlemen, we have the basketball winner is Blake Hammond of Brookfield, who dude could run for president, I'm pretty sure right now, and probably win, because he had that many votes, and it was a landslide. It really was this week. Blake Hammond leading the way both in the votes and on the floor, because I feel like every time we have a Brookfield story, Hammond's in it and he's all over it.
Yeah, and like I said, he's a freshman. He's come on. We talked about first thing on the show, hard for a freshman to come on and make immediate impacts, but when you're that good, you got something going on. And Blake Hammond, I had a chance to do his player profile, find on YSN. He was never fazed by the moment. He knew that he was confident in his own abilities when he came on the floor, and he said, hey, I don't care if I'm a freshman. I'm going to be a leader of this team, and that's what he's done. They have a couple of good seniors that have also helped them lead, but he is one of the statistical and energetic, emotional leaders of that basketball team, and one of the big reasons why Brookfield is having success this year.
Hey, those are your Big Dogs of the Valley, brought to you by Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Congratulations to the winners. New set of Big Dogs should be up tomorrow night. Right here on YSN. And then, oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Ty answered the call.
We have our first guest. It is Ty Bartel Monday. Welcome in to the Prince of Portage. Once again, Ty Bartel. What's up, buddy?
Not much, brother. I heard you guys talking about this. Love the idea. Love the concept too. And just bringing some powerful minds together in the sports world here for this 12 o'clock hour every day. I think it's going to be a great addition going forward this year.
Well, you're a legend, pal. And I'll put you on the hook right here, right now, in front of the world. Mondays, do Mondays work for you? Can we have Ty Bartel Mondays or Ty Bartel Tuesdays? What can we have?
We could look at some consistent day going forward. I'd love to try to make a weekly appearance too. Perhaps we can do something where we're debuting the highlights on the show or something like that, or showcasing that too, and we can talk about the highlights in some of those games too. Which, by the way, I love being able to do those too, and just being able to. I feel like I get a little bit closer with the student athletes in some of these communities even more, because I'm so consumed with high school basketball now too. So after my game, I'm not just in those two communities. I'm in multiple now too, and I'm knowing more names than ever before. So I love it.
How has that been for you? I mean, obviously it was a tall task. Matt Marr did a great job in the fall, but you taking that over, I think you took it to a new level. And I think the appreciation that you have for, like, kind of what you just alluded to, the athletes now, you're able to kind of have your DNA all over it.
Yeah, and it's one of those cases too where you're trying to find a nice balance to where, like, you're able to do it quickly and efficiently. But I mean, I'm such a person where I'm so worried about missing a big play, and it's like you can't. So I mean, you got to pick through, you got to comb through, you got to give each game it's a little bit of due diligence too, to make sure that you get all those big plays and big moments too. But it's a case of, I love basketball, man. You know that. You guys have always known that too. I'm already wrapped up with the sport, so it doesn't feel like work to me when I have to kind of watch and clip through some basketball highlights and kind of put these student athletes on a bit of a pedestal.
Ant, do you have anything?
Yeah,
you got to work on the little give and take here.
When you're doing this, Todd, the other thing you get to do, you not only get to get in the communities, but you get to hear firsthand how good our announcers are, and you get to highlight our announcers more on social media, tagging them in their posts. What have been the most treasuring part about this, hearing all the voices at YSN and being able to know what your brethren and your comrades are doing out there?
You know, YSN's one of those companies that's interesting too, because broadcasting is a very competitive field, right? It's naturally going to have its bit of competition where you're trying to beat out other guys for a job. But this is a case where I feel like YSN gave me that unique opportunity, like I alluded to in the comments earlier, where you listen to my announcing back then, man, to now it is night and day. And you talk about cringe back then too. I mean, listening to my broadcast back then, I feel like I am doing that. But it gave me that chance to kind of mature and kind of find my voice, kind of find my rhythm and how I conduct a broadcast. And I see a lot of potential in a lot of guys right now, too. One guy I'll shout out on the spot, DK Kotzel, I feel like is one of those guys I see in gyms every night doing different games, too. He's starting to find his voice a little bit, too, in just the short time he's been with us, too. And I like the initiative of just getting out there and going to do games. I want to put other guys on a pedestal, too. Like I want to put the student athletes. I want to put these announcers on a pedestal. I want them to feel a little bit of love, too, because I want them to realize, like, hey, man, we're all pushing the same cart. We're all trying to go forward with this thing too. And I mean, we need good performances from you two in the broadcasting booth. And when they have good calls too, I want to make sure that they're showing love and appreciation as well. So yeah, it's definitely cool listening to how everyone kind of conducts a broadcast too. And me as an announcer too, I kind of benefit from that too, because I pick up different things too. And I'm like, oh, I kind of like the way they spun on that too. So I could maybe put my twist on that as well too. So you hear a lot of different announcing too, a lot of different broadcasting. I feel like it also helps me get a little bit better too.
No, I think that you have to do that, right? In a scenario where you get to, I mean, and I don't know how you do it. You know, when we kind of talked about this, I wasn't fully aware, and I'm not sure that I could do it personally as well as you do it, Ty, because you're combing through. Do you start with like, okay, here's a good game, here's a good score, like final score. There's got to be good clips in this, or how do you kind of begin to find those kind of diamonds in the rough, if you will?
First and foremost, we rely on our announcers. We have our little group chat with our announcers, and I rely on our announcers when they say, hey, there was a record-breaking moment here tonight, or hey, this was kind of a big moment too. I want to make sure I capture that. But yeah, you go through the scores, you kind of look at it. You got to have kind of your ear to the ground, your thumb on the pulse, right, too, and kind of know, like, this is a big game for this reason, this is a big game for that reason, kind of keep up with these teams' social medias and such too. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to the scores, and it comes down to just kind of what the announcers are saying and what you're seeing on socials too from the community and what kind of they're saying about things as well too. And once you get to the game and the actual combing process too, it's just kind of become a little bit easier for me because I've done so many now that I'm able to get them out fairly quickly. My biggest enemy is just the load time on some of these social medias to get the videos uploaded. That's my biggest enemy right now.
Your video I think we can help with in 30 minutes.
Yeah, we can help with a little bit of that, but I think one of the bigger issues right now is like I learned X. You have to individually load that up into X. You can't use the little cheat sheets that we have on the back end. But okay, so naturally, Ty, I've got to ask you this question because we are in a new era of YSN, and we have not talked about this. So this is a very open-ended question. What do you want to see in the new era of your sports network that we haven't done necessarily or haven't done well in the first 8 years or so?
I think there's always room for improvement of just getting more coverage and getting more content up, right? I think that's like one of those kind of like how you see a lot of businesses, they look at their revenue growth, they look at those percentages, right? I feel like that kind of is what we look at though, in our terms too, of like how much content are we producing? Are we growing in that number? How many games are we getting out to? Are we growing in that number? And I feel like that's always a case too, where we look back at it and we say, yeah, that was a great job, but we can always do better. And I feel like that's the case too. Improving the broadcast quality, but also just the announcers too, taking it each broadcast as serious as the next one and as the last one too, trying to get that 1% better too, because I feel like overall quality broadcasters will up the quality of the broadcast. You could do a lot of things spectacle wise. You could add better cameras, you could add better microphones, you could add better angles, more shots. You could do all that, but we all know, and you and I both know, if the person narrating it isn't the greatest too, all the spectacle kind of goes away. So I think it's just the announcers too, continuing to take it seriously, continuing to want to improve that 1% each and every day too, and get better as broadcasters too, and just get a little bit closer with the community. I feel like a lot of our broadcasters too can take that step, talk to the coaches, talk to the players, talk to some people too. If you get there early, gives you a perfect opportunity to get a little bit closer with these communities, because one thing I've found out, man, there's a lot of great people in these communities, and the great ones are definitely worth it.
Anthony, stop it.
Okay.
There's going to be a situation. There's going to be a honeymoon of who has controls of the mouse moving
I'm
forward.
not actually next to DJ right now because he'd probably be throttling me, reaching over.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, Ty, you said content. So one of the questions I have for you, since I love content like I do, what's something that, like, content-wise, you want to see maybe more of, or a content idea that you think if we started doing this kind of content, it would be really cool?
And I think it would need help too from communities reaching out to us, but it kind of alludes to what you guys were saying with like the person of the year for each school too. Give me those stories of like someone that, like, I mean, Dan Reardon told all of his football kids, go shovel a driveway instead of doing a workout today and take a picture of it. Like, give me more of those kind of stories. Give me more of those, like, inside the community, thumb on the pulse type of stories where these kids are making a difference. And I mean, it's always like you said, DJ, it's cool to watch them ball out, and it is cool to watch them drop a 46-point performance or a 30-point performance, what have you. But it's really cool too when you're learning that these kids too that have to worry about grades, have to worry about getting in their weight room, have to worry about getting their reps in so that way they could keep their starting time, are also taking the time out of their day, out of their very busy schedules too, to go help the community and kind of lift the community up a little bit. I want more of those type of stories, I think, of just highlighting these kids too, not necessarily on the court too, but what makes them so special off of it as well.
Hey, I'm going to need you to take controls because my browser just went away. I have no idea where it went.
The fight for power.
It just completely went blank. I'm looking at a mountain on Windows right now, Michael Scott style. So I don't know if you can find the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, but I'm going to kind of toss that here in a moment since Ty's with us. We'll go old school and do the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, presented by Joe Dickey Electric, as we wrap up today's inaugural show here on YSN Live, joined by Ty Bartell, which everybody knows and absolutely adores. Ant, hit that button whenever you're ready. It's the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Visit them today at DickeyElectric.com. Are we on? Like I said, I can't see any of us. All I see is this mountain right now, so I'm just guessing. I guess it's my punishment for making fun of our broadcast in the early going to YSN. So I'll start it off. Usually I finish it up, but I'll start it off. Guys, I got to tell you, my spark certainly is the fact that we're here, right? It's something that we've waited for a long time from a standpoint of when do we roll out the new era? When do things start feeling different? And I think, Ty, you being a wrestling guy such as I, you feel that shift, that movement when there's a new era ushered in. And I think that I know that for a while, the under the surface, it's been bubbling. And I think now is the perfect time to usher in the new era, which will be unnamed for now until we find the right word. The Live and Let Die era did not necessarily go the way I thought it would. I'm not going to lie to you. I liked it. It was very James Bondish, and it was a play on words. But ultimately, it fell on flat on its face. But we will name the next era, such as they do in professional wrestling. But it's one that I'm honored to share with each and every one of you. And certainly you guys here that are on this broadcast. We've been through a lot together. Brian Scott, Chris Ziegler, Steve Leslie. The list goes on of the announcers that we have that are a huge part of what we do, not only during the broadcast, but what we do here today. And whether they're still with us or whether they're not, everybody has made an impact in so many different ways. And they've either, made us bitter or made us better. But in the entire time, our companies continue to grow. Thanks to the sponsors that we have that have been with us, that continue to be with us, the people that continue to tune in, no matter what it is, whether it's good or bad. They let their words be known and their thoughts be known as well. We are so grateful. I mean, Ty, you said it, and it immediately flashed me back to the fact that everybody would love to work in sports. Everybody would love to work in sports, to do this job every single day. And on the surface, it looks like it is very, free and very, wake up in your sweatpants and you just talk about sports. But I think the three of us know that there's a little bit more that goes with it. And, I can't thank you guys enough for being patient as we kind of learn together what this looks like and building a business and not just, doing this for fun. A hobby and a business are two different things, as my wife explains to me all the time. Sometimes you've got to make sacrifices. A lot of times you got to make sacrifices. A lot of times they're going to be ones that you don't necessarily want to make and wouldn't raise your hand for it necessarily. But I think that there's so many of us here at YSN. Rob Johnson's watching, I know, and so many have seen those sacrifices that we've made where we want to be somewhere else, we want to do something else, and we continue to do what we have to do in order to go where we want to go. So that's it. Thank you guys. I mean, the new era is here. I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to share this with you. So thank you for being a part of this and being flexible and believing more than anything in a dream of some kid that, grew up in a town that was riddled by a train derailment, 2 years ago.
My spark, reflect everything DJ just said. I mean, just as much as we took a chance on his dream, like I remember meeting DJ in the Wendy's at YSU, in the wheelchair, says he wants to cover South Range, right? And we've come a long way since then. And Ty Bartel, the same thing. I think your first game was with DJ, just like my first game was with DJ back at Austin Town Fit. So want to thank you for giving us that opportunity to make our dreams come true as much as your dreams are coming true. But then also tonight, there's a game I am really looking forward to, and my game got postponed, so I'll be able to just sit back and watch. It's the game that Ty Bartel is going to be at Columbiana Western Reserve on the girls' side. That's going to be a knockdown, drag-out kind of game. Both teams have players that can get their shot wherever they want. I'm really looking forward to that game tonight, Ty. I think you're going to have another big game Bartel moment.
Well, I'm certainly excited for it. My spark, man, is just it kind of piggybacks off of a post I put out there on socials a few weeks ago. It just goes out to everybody that's been there for me. That's kind of talked a little bit of sports with me ever since losing my pop. It was a rough time too, and it was kind of, you talk about a new era. It feels like I'm going into a new chapter of my life as well, and I'm so grateful for the amount of just great people that have been in my life. And I mean, I can't name them all too, but the great people of Fitch, Hope, and Canfield. I mean, just to name a few, Waterloo, so many great communities that I get a chance to be a part of, and so many great people in those communities that just come up, talk to me, chat with me a few minutes. I mean, before the game too. I try to get there early, believe it or not, just so I could chat with all of you that I know are going to be there in the community, just so I can give you guys a few minutes too of just my time, because I appreciate the few minutes you guys give me. And of course, I remain grateful for just the opportunity of you guys have presented me to be here on YSN each and every day, doing games, doing basketball, doing all these sports that I love too, and being able to be a part of these communities too, and give me that thing I look forward to at the end of every day too, after a long work day in the morning too. I always look forward to putting these kids on a spotlight too, and hyping them up a little bit too, because I love hearing that they enjoy the broadcast too. And that's all that it's ever meant to me too. And that's all that I've ever cared about is how are the kids feeling about it? How are the communities feeling about it? Because I don't judge my own broadcast. I let the communities do that. So I'm always grateful that they've given me all the love, and I try to give all the love right back to them.
Well, I'll judge your broadcast. They're freaking awesome. And we love watching them, and certainly we love hearing them on the new highlights that you're putting together. Gentlemen, what a great day it is here at the Your Sports Network. What a great day it is for America in general. I know we were going to talk about the Ohio State Notre Dame championship game real quick, round the horn. What's your prediction? What's the score? Let's start with you, Ty.
Give me Ohio State Buckeyes 34-21.
Ooh, okay. So
I think
missed extra point or what? Or two field goals?
Couple field goals. I'll go couple field goals too. Hopefully Fielding will actually make them. We'll see.
I was just going to say that's a lot of confidence in a bad kicker.
I'm going to go lower scoring because I think Notre Dame's going to try to control the tempo, and I think they have the best running back on Ohio State's schedule. So I think they will be able to move the ball through the ground and slow the game down a little bit. But I think the Buckeyes are just going to make those plays that win them the game. I'm going to say Ohio State. Let's go 24-17.
I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the bad guy here, and I'll say that Notre Dame is going to win the damn game. I think Rudy comes onto the field. I think that they I only did that for Anthony. No, I think that, every pundit has looked at Notre Dame and they say, you're not supposed to be here, and here's the team that's going to beat you all along the way, and yet here they are in the national championship. Do I think it's going to be a blowout either way? I don't. I think that Notre Dame, just as was it last year, it came down to the last play of the game. I think it's going to come down to the last play of the game, and I think this one's going to benefit Notre Dame. I think Coach Freeman is an absolute dog, and I think that he's had a long time to gear up for this Ohio State team. Not a whole lot changed from last year to this year with the Buckeyes, and I think that there's a lot of people that'll look at that and say, on paper, names have changed, but the game plan is still the same. I think that Coach Freeman learns a thing or two, has the advantage, just such as we saw, all throughout the season. Whatever season you're looking at, the second time through, the loser always has the advantage. So I'm going to take Notre Dame. I'm going to take them 24-21 in a big national championship, and everybody goes home happy with a great. I thought it was a great playoff system. I really did thought it was awesome. So take it for what it's worth. Ohio State people, you can hate me.
If Coach Freeman became the first African-American coach to win a natty on Martin Luther King Day.
Oh boy, you just wrote the story.
That'd be a good headline.
I didn't realize he would be the first.
I think he's the first because there was an opportunity that they were all talking about when Penn State was in the semifinal that it could have been like if they both won, it would have been guaranteed that the first African-American coach to win a natty. So now that he's in there, he has the opportunity to become the first if he wins over Ohio State.
Well, if you believe in conspiracy theories, there it is. There it is. I wasn't even aware of that. That's incredible.
Anthony, being a Chiefs fan, would know.
I don't believe in the conspiracy theories. It's not scripted.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later this week because I think the Chiefs' time is up. The Bills' time.
You and all of
down.
America, except for Kansas City, Missouri.
I don't even think there's people. I think there's people in Kansas City, Missouri that are sick of the Chiefs.
Anthony's one of the few red dots in Northeast Ohio.
We'll have a watch party. Me and the other 3 Chiefs fans that I know in Youngstown.
Well, I'm sorry about it, Ant. You've had your time. You've had your time in the limelight. Now it's time to give it up to Josh Allen. How the Lions, man? The Lions. Vegas made $1 billion this weekend.
Well, yeah.
Guaranteed.
The Chiefs did not cover the spread with that purposeful safety. If you want to believe in conspiracy theories, that made a lot of money too, because if you bet on the Chiefs -9, you had them, and then they had their punt and run out of the back of the end zone to not cover the spread.
Unbelievable.
Taylor Swift is betting against the Chiefs in a Pete Rose type of play. I believe it. It's going to be the next big headline. T Swift is conspiring and making billions off bets against the Chiefs.
I'm as big a T Swift fan as you're ever going to see in this industry. But I'll tell you what, man, I cannot stand when the NFL just drools all over her, and it's cutaway after cutaway after cutaway of the press box. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's frustrating. Anthony's got to be frustrating for you, and I know you're not against Taylor Swift at all. It's just it's a distraction. I don't know how it doesn't distract the Chiefs.
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't distracted T. Kelsey either. I mean, he's playoff.
Oh, we're calling him T. Kelsey now.
He's playoff trap. He's playoff trap like he always has been. 11 catches, 100+ yards.
Is that what he had?
Yeah. So
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting because
but the Texans forgot to guard him. So
Bills like playing. Bills like playing in that cold, man, and it's going to be cold in Kansas City. There's no doubt about it.
Let's go. It's going to be fun.
No doubt about it. We got plenty of time to talk about that. We want to thank everybody for tuning in for the first show. Certainly, we are YSN Live, and we've been YSN Live for about 2 hours. So thank you again. No time constraints. If we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it, and we'll let it fly. On behalf of Anthony and Ty, I'm DJ. This has been YSN Live, episode 1, right here on your sports network. YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of your sports network. For stories, stats, and more, go to ysnlive.com.